Hi everyone, this is Blake Butterman and this is my MBA 590 Capstone Business Solution Project. I have decided to address the challenge of how Mount Shasta ski area can break down the barriers to entry for new and prospective skiers. I'm an avid snowboarder, and when I try to encourage friends to join me who have never tried it, they resist for several reasons, primarily the cost of lift tickets. Other reasons include gathering the proper gear together, the associated costs of rentals, costs of food in the lodge, and much more. It all becomes so overwhelming that they talk themselves out of it. So let's dive into how I believe Mount Shasta can rethink their pricing structures as well as create an inclusive, welcoming environment that not only makes skiing easier to try and easier to stick with, but also creates long-term financial growth. So a little bit about Mount Shasta Ski Park. It has terrain that caters to all abilities with over 1,390 vertical feet and 425 acres of skiable terrain. And it's considered a regional economic asset for its tourism. Being located in Northern California makes it reasonably accessible from several major metropolitan areas in both California and Oregon, like Redding and Medford. And it is considered both a regional destination and a quick day trip resort for those living in the local area, as well as those living in Medford and Redding, like myself. I live outside of Ashland, Oregon. So I tend to stay there overnight on occasion, but more often make it there and back in one day, depending on my schedule and the snow conditions. Since new skiers are less likely to invest in expensive multi-day trips far from home, Mount Shasta has a big appeal to beginners. It is accessible for a low cost overnight, especially from Redding and Medford. The shorter drive makes it a lower cost, less of a commitment, and this convenience appeals to curious first-timers, families, and casual users. Let's discuss in more detail the barriers to entry for these new and prospective skiers. So, the complexity of planning a day at the ski area and the associated costs can be so daunting to new skiers, inadvertently discouraging people from getting into the sport at all and failing to convert beginners into repeat participants. Despite awareness of this problem, the ski industry continues to operate in ways that make it very hard for new people to get into the sport. Most notably, the high costs of gear, lift tickets, and lessons. Others include complicated logistics like travel, rentals, resort rules, intimidating environments, limited beginner-friendly terrain or instruction, as well as cultural exclusivity and feeling like skiing is only for fit, rich white people. So, going to ski isn't a necessity, it's considered a non-essential luxury. There are many outdoor winter-based substitutes to skiing, such as snowshoeing, in which gear is significantly cheaper, no lift ticket fee, and learning curve. There's also sledding, ice skating, or tubing. But people still want to go ski. So the problem isn't demand. People are truly interested in the sport. The problem is that the system makes it so difficult, expensive, and frustrating to even get started. So let's look at what Mount Shasta currently offers to beginners. They have one beginner package for ages 10 and up that includes a one-day lift ticket or a half-day lift ticket, rental gear, and a lesson. And their goal is getting you to ride the beginner marmot lift by the end of the day. This makes me feel as though this package is not aimed for adults, and personally I feel as though my friends who are scared, intimidated, or financially hesitant to try skiing would not enjoy this package because they're being grouped with potentially 10 to 18-year-old beginners. and they're still paying quite a significant amount of money to supposedly learn how to ski within one day. I performed a financial analysis of Mount Shasta Ski Park based on the visitor volume being 160,000 visitors per year. So, for the purpose of this study, I'm focusing on adult skiers who purchase daily lift tickets, as they best represent my demographic and face the greatest pricing barrier to entry. By estimating usage across weekdays, weekends, and half day visits, I've calculated a simplified weighted average lift ticket price of approximately $98.44 per an adult. This figure excludes season pass holders to focus on per visit costs, which are more relevant for evaluating accessibility and price sensitivity. As you can see, season passes are $700 for adults, which means if you ski more than 7 times, you get your money's worth. This demonstrates how skiing disproportionately caters to experienced participants who want to go more than 1 or 2 times per season. Mount Shasta Ski Park sees an estimated 160,000 skier visits annually with a weighted average adult lift ticket price of $98.44. This translates to approximately $15.75 million in annual ticket sales. However, like many mid-sized ski resorts, Mount Shasta's business model goes beyond just lift tickets. Based on industry benchmarks, ticket sales typically make up 40 to 50% of total revenue. That means a large portion of income also comes from rentals, lessons, food and beverage, and other ancillary services. When we apply this mix to Mount Shasta, we estimate their total annual revenue to range between $31.5 million and $39.4 million. This highlights the importance of diversified revenue streams in sustaining the financial health of a semi-remote mid-sized ski resort like Mount Shasta. The law of supply and demand states that the demand level for a resource or product will decline as its price rises and rise as the price drops. Demand elasticity adds another dimension. Typically, elasticity is used to describe how much demand for a product changes as its price increases or decreases. Consumer preferences shaped by economic, social, and psychological factors will contribute to the elasticity of a commodity or good, and all these factors play a part in making decisions in pricing. Based off of these economic principles, by cutting lift ticket prices targeted at new adult skiers, like making starter packages, weekday discounts, etc., Mount Shasta could draw disproportionately more newcomers, increasing total visits and revenue from secondary services. Skiing, especially for new or occasional participants, is considered highly price elastic, meaning that small changes in the price lead to relatively large changes in demand, especially to these budget-sensitive beginners. My solution is a better beginner series package aimed at adults that provides them with a day consisting of an initial lesson in a group of all adults 18 and over with rentals and a lift ticket. The series provides 2 follow-up days of independent practice and skiing consisting of a lift ticket, gear rental, and this is all at a discount of about 37% from normal prices. So they can continue to learn the sport with unintimidating costs and logistics, and basically just continue what they learned the first day, but on their own agenda. Most adult beginner skiers can achieve basic skiing competence, such as stopping, turning, and riding lifts, in just one group lesson, unlike maybe younger adults, 18 and under. Continued improvement comes from practice, not additional format instructions. So, therefore, I believe a discounted return package focused on lift access and rentals without a lesson is well aligned with how adults learn. It incentivizes continued participation at a lower cost, helps transform one time visitors into repeat skiers. This would appeal to a demographic of adults looking for a low pressure, affordable way to learn and build their skills over time. Let's look at the estimated financial impact of My First Track's pass pricing. Yes, revenue per user would drop by $179,000 to $447,500 if 1,000 to 2,500 passes were sold. But this pricing encourages more total participation. Mount Shasta can increase the volume of skier visits. A major financial benefit of the pass is an increase in ancillary income, also known as non-ticket revenue. By capturing more food, beverage, rentals, lessons, add-on revenue by building long-term loyalty. Even converting 1,000 to 2,500 new adult skiers could be a worthwhile trade-off if it leads to future season pass holders and return visits. What could the long-term financial impacts of the First Track's pass pricing model be? First of all, from a fundamental economics perspective, increased skier retention leads to higher profit margins, stronger customer lifetime value, and sustained business growth. Lowering initial price barriers and enhancing first-time experiences builds loyalty, which compounds over time into long-term financial gain. The National Ski Areas Association's model for growth, introduced in 1999, explicitly focuses on turning beginner skiers into long-term enthusiasts. NSAA research shows that traditionally only about 15% of first-time skiers convert into what's considered a core skier. But even with just 15% of beginner pass buyers converting to long-term core skiers, Mount Shasta could generate an additional $427,000 to $1.07 million in revenue over 3 seasons. This demonstrates the significant financial value of improving beginner experiences and supporting skier conversion, which demonstrates how even modest increases in retention can significantly impact long-term participation and financial outcomes. This chart illustrates the revenue potential of My First Tracks Pass, especially if it successfully converts up to 20% of beginner skiers into returning core participants. So a little bit of how I calculated these total revenue figures is from a Colorado Sun article. Core skiers ski an average of 5 times per season. Taking that figure and multiplying it by the average lift ticket price of $98.44, and then ancillary spending of about $60 per day, the total per visit revenue of a core skier can be around $158.44 per visit. This could generate up to over $2 million in total revenue. So based on conservative estimates, this program could generate an additional $726,788 to $2.17 million in revenue by year 3. When added to the resort's estimated annual revenue range of 31.5 million to 39.4 million. This results in a total projected revenue of $32.2 million to $41.5 million in year 3. So, of course, there are limitations and implications. Most importantly, the success of my solution highly depends on demand. While price elasticity suggests demand will rise with lower prices, actual conversion depends on various other non-price factors as well, most importantly, weather and snowfall. Others may be perceptions of difficulty or cultural interest. And there's operational capacity. Of course, an influx of beginners could strain instructors, rental inventory, and lift lines. If Mount Shasta isn't prepared to accommodate them, guest satisfaction could decline, reducing retention, which is the very goal of my program. Luckily, Mount Shasta can support up to 2,600 skiers a day and transport around 10,000 people per hour via its lift system. Long-term growth via beginner programs requires carefully scaled operations to preserve service levels and avoid saturation and crowding. On that note, it's interesting how a good snowfall year could actually increase the turnout of beginners and converted course skiers, but also crowd mountains. Luckily, I don't believe this will be a problem at Mount Shasta since it's more of a remote mountain, and this is more commonly seen in ski areas like Vail in Colorado. The season and snow dependence definitely would impact my financial model, but Mount Shasta is vulnerable to poor snowfall years, which can drastically reduce beginner turnout and return visits. So, as far as the retention data assumptions go, the projections rely on general industry averages, which are 15 to 25% conversions of beginner skiers. Mount Shasta's unique demographics or lack of follow-up systems could result in lower than modeled retention without investment in guest engagement. Some of the implications include revenue diversification. The pass would open up new revenue streams from entry-level customers who historically face financial and psychological barriers. If managed well, this diversifies income beyond course skiers. Another positive implication is strategic differentiation. Offering a structured, affordable path for adult beginners can differentiate Mount Shasta from nearby resorts, building loyalty and creating community. Another positive implication is long-term brand loyalty. Retaining even a small percentage of first-timers creates multi-season customers, increasing the resort's customer lifetime value and reducing marketing costs. One implication risk is margin pressure. Heavily discounted beginner passes may reduce average revenue per customer in the short term. If return rates are overestimated, the resort could experience a temporary margin erosion. My solution with the First Tracks Adult Beginner Pass would increase the relative growth of Mount Shasta substantially, representing a 2.3% to 5.5% increase, driven solely by skier conversion and loyalty. This proves that even a moderately successful beginner program can yield a high return on investment, enhancing both revenue stability and long-term participation in the sport. My model also demonstrates that by leveraging price elasticity to lower initial barriers for beginners, Mount Shasta can stimulate demand, increase skier retention, and significantly grow total revenue, proving that strategic pricing aligned with demand elasticity is a powerful driver of long-term profitability. Skiing risks becoming a shrinking, aging, elite hobby rather than a growing, accessible sport, with resorts seeing a potential revenue stagnation or worse. With my solution, both Mount Shasta and its guests benefit. New skiers gain affordable access to the sport, while the resort builds long-term loyalty and revenue through sustained participation.